Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to WhatYouWant.com. Thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at a classical reference from one of the haut de gamme manufacturers of the Swiss Big Three. That's right, Vacheron Constantin. You're looking at the Patrimony Power Reserve. This is the reference 47200 in 18-karat white gold, and this is nothing less than the root of everything Vacheron represents. This is restrained size, modest proportion, beautiful detailing, elegant complication, just enough use of calculated asymmetry, beautifully rendered in 18-karat white gold. This is the classical face of Vacheron Constantin. If you're the type who winces every time you see a Quai de Lille or regrets the Richemont takeover, if you long for the days when Vacheron was that classical mid-century leader in elegance and refinement, this is the watch for you. So let's just break down what makes this watch exceptional. It is a survivor. Now, this reference was originally released in the mid-1990s, just as Vacheron was beginning to get its groove back, and it really represents one of the comeback models for the company. Now, it was produced through the transition from the Sheikh Yamani years into the Richemont era, and during that period it represented a rock that tied Vacheron's past to its future. Now, the past, let's go over that first. What you can see here is nothing less than a classical dress watch. Now, in terms of symmetry, you have Roman numerals, but only at 3 stations. You can see this basically trilateral arrangement of Romans interspersed with applied square indexes is a beautiful frame for the classical Power Reserve date and small second subdials. Now, asymmetry is a long-standing tradition at the haut de gamme brands. You've seen it everywhere from Patek Philippe to Cartier, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Audemars Piguet, and Vacheron does it as well as anyone, if not better. Now, I'm going to get a little bit closer and hope that my iPhone accommodates me here. But what you can see is the product of a JLC Bosch. This is actually the same movement that's in the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reserve de Marche, and we'll get to that in a moment, but that explains the layout of the dial. There's a little bit of tradition there because JLC from the mid-century developed the thinnest and finest Boches for Vacheron, for Audemars Piguet, and later on for Patek Philippe. So there's a great deal of horological tradition in the origin of the movements and how that impacts the arrangement of the dial. But if we can get past the engine beneath, let's take a look at this dial and explore why it is so elegant. The Romans are where you start, but moving inward you can see that there's a unique vertical striation, a guilloche cut pattern that is from top to bottom almost like a tuxedo pinstriping. Now, my camera doesn't do it justice. You can see it in high-res images on our website, WhatYouWant.com, which really brings it out to better effect. Now, there are 2 versions of this dial on the 47200. This is the one you want. You don't want the matte. You don't want that kind of indistinct look that comes without the guilloche. You want that vertical striation that really lends a strong character to this watch. Though 36 millimeters, this watch wears and has much more wrist presence than its size suggests. First and foremost, you want to look at that dial and move back out. At the edges, you see a classical dress tactic, a smaller watch of traditional proportions, enlarged and empowered by what's known as a stepped bezel and stepped lugs. This is a classical tradition. When you don't want to make a big watch, make a watch with a big impact. And by adding articulation and character lines to the case and lugs, Vacheron achieves that without bulk. Now, the dial itself is a silvered basic cadran, and it's complemented by these applied white gold indexes, numerals, and hands. And the hands at center are key. They are foy hands. Very delicate, very elegant, very refined. The combination of the white gold foy hands, the white gold applied indexes, and of course the white gold case makes this a study in restrained delicacy. This is a black tie watch par excellence. And turning it over, you can see the other half of the equation. Now, this is Vacheron Constantin's caliber 1127, based on a JLC Bosch. Descendant of this caliber is actually still in action in the Vacheron line today as the caliber 1222 that's used in the overseas Power Reserve. But here it's featured in a level of finish that is leagues beyond what you get from JLC. And I'm sorry to admit as a JLC owner that they don't quite take their movement to this level of finish. This is what you expect from Geneva's finest. This is what Vacheron does best. Take a movement and finish it to the nth degree. This holds up under a microscope. This would make JLC proud and maybe even make them blush a little bit because Vacheron has taken the movement to the limit of its potential aesthetically. Beautiful Côte de Genève, gorgeous beveling. Every screw and jewel countersink is polished, gorgeously linear grained, radially grained wheels, levers. Everything about this is haut de gamme. JLC is not always finished to this level, and I'm sorry to say that even this family of movements in other top-end brands, such as Audemars Piguet, doesn't always find the same level of hand attention that you find at Vacheron Constantin. But they have a tradition of finishing movements to the absolute peak of potential, and that holds up here in this Vacheron caliber 1127. So again, if you're the type who kind of gets a little queasy when you see the Quai de Lille today, the size that's become germane to the Vacheron line, the indelicate lines, the bulky cases, the somewhat crude ploys to make plays for developing markets, the bottom line is this is old world, old school, Vacheron at its best. A classical reference with a classical movement, complicated, just enough asymmetry to set it off. It's almost a picture of Vacheron in transition, the best of the old world and the new, and none of the drawbacks of either. This is the Vacheron Constantin Patrimony Power Reserve, available from whatyouwant.com. This is an outstanding example of a transitional reference in the manufacturer's history. If you're into Vacheron, if you're into haut de gamme, if you want something rare, if you want something that's really going to stand out in an office full of Breitling, Omega, Rolex, or heck, even Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet, you can't do any better than this Vacheron Constantin reference 47200 Patrimony Power Reserve from whatyouwant.com.